Hi, everyone. I'm back. And today, thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for being here. And today I'm so excited because I'm talking with Rachael
That's right.
Lahela Marie. Thank you for being here, Rachael.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Sharon. This is so exciting.
And you can probably see the beautiful scenery behind her. She's on the big island in Hawaii. So first of all, I'm jealous. And although where I am at in Oregon, it's a really nice day today, but yeah, Hawaii, paradise. Rachael wrote the book, Love Notes from Jesus, 133 messages of light from the loving heart of Christ. And I was just sharing with Rachael how I'm about halfway through and, oh man, wow.
It's a transmission.
Oh yeah, it's just.
I feel it just talking about it.
Yeah, totally. I know, me too. This influx of love is indescribable. Indescribable as that's something that you and I share, is that connection with. We all have our unique connections, but with our deep connection with I call him Yeshua, Jesus Christ. And so I do want you to share, but I just want to explain real quick, all that love. I felt so full as I'm reading her book and going through some of the messages. And it's something that, probably one at a time might be, or
yeah.
2 or 3, not a bunch of it anyway, but you just don't want to stop, right? Because it's just so, feeling that presence with you, and tears are streaming, remembering that love and everything. And I, even having that connection, because he and I used to connect in that way 20 years ago when I first started connecting with him, where I would write love notes, poems. I used to write poems a lot. I don't as much anymore. I need to get back into it with the work being different. But yeah, so having that connection is really, really profound. So thank you for bringing us this book.
Yeah, you're welcome. It came, and like we were talking about before, it really came. Backstory had been, raised in the Catholic Church, raised in the Lutheran Church. And so Jesus, Mother Mary, the Holy, who we know in the West as the Holy Family, had always been around me. My grandmother, my mom's mom, was always very connected to Mother Mary. All of us, sort of the women in that lineage, my aunts, my grandma's sister, we'd see 333 all the time. My grandma would smell roses. And so I always was aware of this connection to the whole Holy Family. And when this book came through, I think I was sharing with you before, I had just moved back to Hawaii. I was on Kauai. And I had been coming off, we were coming off of everyone being isolated with COVID. We were, I personally was coming off of a huge period of isolation after a head injury. And I was at home with my family recovering. And I knew that the only way to fully heal, to get better, was to go back to Hawaii, to back to my place, back. And essentially it would be really a journey back to the divine within, back to the mother, back to that connection with Yeshua, which had always underlined my existence, really, but in a way that was still connected to the pure essence of him that exists beyond any dogma of religion, right? Because he existed, and the teachings of Christ, of the Christ, existed way before him, so to connect with him as a master teacher, and the word in Hawaii that we use is wayshower or wayfinder. So someone who sort of charts that course, for us, and says, okay, this is the pathway of light. This is, he says, the light, the truth, and the way that I am. That's all true, and it was all true before religious dogma sort of piled on top of it, So
Totally.
to get back to that connection, I think, in hindsight, is what I've been doing over really the last 7 to 10 years, to sort of get back to that, to clear and to get back to that place of purity where, you can connect with the place that is him within our own anahata, or our own temple of Solomon, like the gateway of the heart. So yeah,
Nice.
it sort of just all came through, and I was there, my doula business was slow because of, everyone's fear around COVID. And
Before, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rachel. Before
no,
you go on, okay, because I know we want to hear all about it, and I do too. I want to read your bio real quick, and that was my fault.
Sure.
I should have started there,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to tell everyone about how profound this book
No,
was
go
for me. Okay.
I know, it's like he just comes through.
I know, right? All right, so let me read your bio real quick for everyone watching.
Yeah.
Okay, Rachael is an author, a world traveler, and lover of meditation. She holds a Bachelors of Science in Nursing degree from Ursuline College in Cleveland, Ohio, and is a certified birth and postpartum doula. She believes the planet is currently undergoing a deep healing process of change at this time, which will allow the light of divine love to shine even brighter through the hearts of all humanity. When she isn't tucked in somewhere, cozy writing, she can be found enjoying nature, planting flowers, or out in her beloved ocean playing with the whales. Yay! She believes in peace, tolerance, and above all else, the power of love to heal. Yes. Today, Rachael has become a doula for the world, the times, and the planet through her writing. She finds joy in helping humanity birth a new, more loving way of being through her work. Rachael facilitates retreats, workshops, and group experiences, all centered around the wisdom teachings of the heart. And I will definitely have your information in the description so people can contact you, and where to find your book. Okay, which is on Amazon, but yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so continue. So how, to give us some focus here, or give me focus, how did you
I know, it's like you get into it and it's just,
I know.
Whenever he comes, it's just kind of like, I just want to sit in this wellspring, this pool of bliss and peace. And, people forget that, because we are so inundated with images of Yeshua on the cross, which always was, I've been shown the crucifixion through the eyes of the Magdalene, and I can't.
Same here.
I can't even.
Once is enough. Thank you.
Once is enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so it's like I go into churches or and there's a lot of beautiful churches around the world that I do love and find his energy very present. But people forget how joyful that he is, that was and is, and how much happiness and bliss comes from a relationship with him. And so I find that, when I'm with someone who sort of carries that energy and that knowing, right, of the core truth of his essence, it's like I just want to sit and bliss out.
Right, totally. Same here.
And
yeah. So if you could just share where you started with how you were starting to share, and I interrupted you. You said you were in a really rough time in your life, and share a little bit of that journey with that connection with him.
Yeah. So okay. I was on Kauai at the time, and I sort of, I was healing my body, healing my spirit from really the last 5 years. And I had a bad head injury. And so I had been sort of at home being cared for, by my family. And I knew that I needed to come back to Hawaii. I had, backstory a little bit. I had been going back and forth from Florida to Hawaii for probably about 7 years. And so I knew that the last sort of stage of this healing journey after this injury would require me to pilgrimage back to Hawaii. And so when I got here, and I always say, it's, I'm sure you have connections to the Essenes as well, Jesus's extended family and soul group, and how I can remember, sort of traveling under the radar of the system, right? Traveling under the radar with protection, with sort of that divine path carved out. And I say always to people, because I landed on Kauai in the midst of, all of the regulations and the constrictions from COVID. So I ended up on Hawaii, even though the state was shut, places to stay were shut, all these things. People are like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I just did. And looking back now, I know it was them. So I was recovering from that head injury. I had a very nasty breakup. I wasn't receiving work in flow how I normally was. I wasn't making the money that I was used to. And so I was sort of at this place that people, I think, know is like the dark night, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is like the fourth dark night, of the soul. Like, what's going on here? What am I doing wrong? And in the book, I'm like, I say that like I had come to the world's, one of the world's smallest islands in the middle of the world's biggest ocean with nothing left to do except for turn inward. Right. I had nothing, nowhere else to go, nowhere else to turn to except for Yeshua, except for Jesus and his energy and his light. And I had been waking up. I arrived on Kauai, and it's a very light-filled place. And so what the islands do collectively, Hawaii, and it looks like a lot of outward destruction, and people are like, I moved to Hawaii and everything is falling apart in my life, And now looking back, I know, and after speaking with the islands, that light, that vibration causes a flush, right, of everything that's sort of in our way, or not serving us, or that needs to go. Right. Old patterns, old habits, old, density from lifetimes. And so I had been waking up with this horrible feeling of anxiety. I mean, just really like upon waking every morning for about 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm frustrated. I'm ready to cry every morning, thinking that symptoms from my head injury are back, and that I'm never going to heal. And what's going on. And so I had to get to a point where I was so completely exhausted. One morning I woke up and I was in the ocean, and I was like, I know how to meditate. Like, I just got this message. I'm like, I know how to meditate. I've been teaching yoga now for almost a decade. I need to just sit with this. And I'm like, sit with this? Okay. It's the last thing I want to do. So I dried off and I went back to my apartment, and I sat down on my meditation rug. Like, my old journal was there, my meditation rug was there, and I sat and I said, okay, I because I had sort of lost that connection, right? Like, I had, Jeshua was not a part of my everyday. The Marys, Mother Mary, they were just kind of in the background. I had been really going at it alone, thinking I was alone for a long time, previously. And I sat down, and the first message that I got was, you just need to let this anxious feeling sort of come in and consume you. And I was like, no way, no, I'm gonna explode. I'm gonna have like a Kundalini crisis. I'm gonna fry my fist, I'm like, what is this? Very, very much in fear. And so I resisted. And so the anxious feeling persisted until, completely exhausted, I gave in. And it was one of those experiences that it's just kind of hard for me to put into words. It was like a peace and a joy just sort of came through my back heart and like expanded out, into my whole energetic fields. And it was like an ocean of peace and bliss. And I just started writing. I'm like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And I just started writing, and it was him. It was him sort of breaking through that barrier of, I'm alone. I need to do this all myself. I'm not connected to any sort of, divine family, these stories that we tell ourselves when we forget. And so for about 2 weeks following that, I woke up, I swam in the ocean, I ate fruit and vegetables, only directly from the land. And I meditated, and we just dialogued, we just spoke. And this book is a portion of what I think I probably have enough messages for another, 5 or 6 books.
Yay.
He's like, just start with 133, and then after they all kind of came through, I again was in the water, and the title came through, and it's like, love notes from Jesus. And I'm like, people are gonna, I'm like, Jesus, I can't say that to people. They're gonna think like, that we're writing love notes back and forth. And, all these, thoughts of judgment came into my mind, all these fears of being judged
that were coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, people are gonna think I'm cuckoo, like that I'm and I was like, you know what? It was just kind of one of those things, where I knew the truth of my experience, and I knew the truth of his presence in my life, and what that meant, and what that, means for the whole world, and I'm like, okay, I can't keep this in, because I was just gonna keep them in a journal and like sleep with the journal and read the journal, and
like I did.
Right.
And do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because, you think like, when you start to have open dialogue, with people about Jesus as beloved, they start to kind of, look at you a little sideways, like,
Right.
But that is truly how he showed up for me, and that's still truly how, I feel him as this.
That's how he showed up for me too.
Yeah, exactly. And that,
Yeah.
goes, I think, to the connection with the Marys and through lifetimes. And,
right.
This isn't a new path, this is our, the way he explained it. It was like the Holy Family is, our soul stream, and it's like, at first I wondered, because prior to this, when I was doing, deep healing work around my head injury, I was having these experiences coming up. Like I was experiencing the crucifixion through the eyes of Mary Magdalene. I was experiencing, deep experiences with Jesus as beloved prior to this. And I sort of was like,
I did the same thing.
Like, my brain,
that's crazy.
Here.
Something's wrong. I'm making this up, or why would I be making this up? But it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And so now, it's like to take the next step forward and to speak about it, right? To speak about the truth. And
isn't it, excuse me for interrupting you.
Yeah,
I'll probably do this a lot, but sorry. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time and at the time.
No, because I'll just keep going. So, feel free. It's just.
Isn't it so freeing to find other people? It doesn't always have to be a woman in female form either, but that have that connection, with him as a beloved in that way. For me, it was like 20 years. It was about 20 years ago. So how do I tell people that I'm seeing memories, visions, whatever of, it feels just as strong as here. It's a memory as Mary Magdalene. How do I tell people that? I couldn't get, and I knew that I wasn't the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene. It just didn't sit right. Right.
Because that comes up for a lot of women, and they've found me just on Instagram and Facebook, and they're saying like, I am her. And I'm like, you are her, but this is how that you are in the soul stream. You are a fractal, because as Christ consciousness is waking back up on the planet, it's such a huge energy, right? And it can't just happen in one of us. And so it's waking up in all of us, all of us that are in this, I call it a soul stream too.
Soul stream,
yeah. It's sort of like a river, with many parts, many streams, going out into one ocean is kind of how,
Yeah, but it's so freeing, and I really
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we're connecting and that there's so many women connecting with that energy too, because I remember at the time, people, when I would hear about someone or I'd tell someone about, I'm having these memories of Mary Magdalene, very few people, very few people. And a couple of people would say, my sister, she also said she was Mary Magdalene. She ended up in the psych ward, which I had spent a week in the psych ward
Yep.
back then. And I'm like, okay, well, this is starting to make sense. As I was hearing more people that were women, it was what I was hearing about
Oh, yeah.
women. More women were having those memories, but were thinking they were crazy and didn't know how to handle it, didn't know how to put it in perspective.
Oh, yeah.
So now with more of us healing as we heal,
Yes.
we're able to put it in perspective. So it's amazing.
Yes. And that's true because, as the feminine, right? And this goes back, to initially right after the crucifixion, and I tell people this all the time, is this is what happened, is this systemic sort of thumbing under of that feminine Christed aspects, and it goes back even to the who we know in the West as the original disciples, right? Like,
Right.
even though, like, we're brought up within the church, now to believe that there was 12 male disciples and, that is it. I'm like, no,
No.
it's just not true. There were, but they had wives, and there were many other men and many other women who followed.
Lots of women. I remember lots of women.
Me too. There were more of us than men,
Yeah.
I think is how I see it and feel it,
Me too.
with him, because his message was innately connected to the mother and to the feminine. Jesus
Yeah.
was
Goosebumps.
never disconnected, and 90% of his messages, I would say, to me are, find me in nature, connect to me through connecting to the mother. Jesus, when they say in modern religious contexts, it was without sin, it just means that he never lost his connection to the truth of his connection to the divine mother, to the Holy Spirit, to the Shekinah, to all her many names. And he never lost that connection. He never lost the truth of that. And so what we've forgotten, but what's rising up into our memories as we heal, is that divine feminine aspect is essential, and we're never ever separate from it, and you read Proverbs, for example, and I never read the Bible. I was never into the Bible, at all, because I'm sitting there thinking, in like 8th grade, like, okay, if this was translated from Aramaic to Coptic to Greek, to English, like, are we sure that, all of this is being translated, accordingly, and I was that girl, who asked, that of the, are you sure, is this the correct like meaning, and I'd kind of get side-eyed, because it's just gone through so much, but yeah, there were so many women with us, and
Totally.
and back to what you said, it goes back to like that moment when Peter doubted, Mary Magdalene, and he said,
Oh, I know. I remember that.
I remember it
that.
too. I remember it too. And just
Do you remember Peter? Do you remember Peter being in love with him? I mean, everyone was in love with him, but you know what I mean? Do you remember Peter being in love with him and being jealous of Mary?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that. And not, and not with judgment, but just I remember that a little bit of animosity there, a little bit of animosity there.
Yeah, it is. And it's in, I just finished reading not too long ago, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And she talks about it. Karen King, she talks about how it's great. If you haven't read it, Karen King, her version of
I've read some of it, but not the whole thing. Okay.
Oh, it's great. And she talks about it too, where, right before the crucifixion, Yeshua comes to Mary and he gives her a teaching, and says, you are to continue this teaching. You are to inherit this after I've ascended out of my physical body and have become light. You are to carry this on. You are to go on. And so Mary comes out, after, and this is in the Garden of Gethsemane, the night that we know that Yeshua was, betrayed, even though it was all, according to divine plan and how it
Right.
should.
My feeling, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but
Yeah.
my feeling was that we don't have the whole truth about that either.
Exactly. That same here, that, and I always felt such a tenderness for Judas.
Oh, me too.
Like
Ooh,
nobody,
goosebumps.
right? Same here. That nobody people. He's like this scapegoat that people vilify, but there's always this awareness, sort of in my consciousness, kind of hanging out of, like, he's just not. He was that ultimate love, because without that chain of events that he brought forward, none of us would have been, the whole earth, the planet, humanity would not have been seated with Christ consciousness, and we would all not be ascending now.
Yeah.
And so it was like the ultimate act of love. And that's, I think, very hard for people to digest, because we have each person in their specific, cemented into their specific role.
I know, and his name is even used as one of betrayal, which I always felt was really sad. Well, not always, but it was a feeling inside me until I actually had my memories. But I actually recalled that there was more than Judas involved in that, and I felt that Judas was a scapegoat for some other people that were around Yeshua.
Yes.
And he was the scapegoat. I honestly did not have any memory as I looked at him in those times of him taking money for it.
Right. Yeah. It never resonated with me either.
Yeah.
I was like, that's just
that's
not right.
Not the one not the soul that I remember.
No, me neither. Him and and going back to Peter,
Oh, sorry. Yes.
No, there was a moment, where after, I just remember like that, the teaching, right, of the heart, right, the gate of Solomon, right, the heart that connects the lower and the upper together, the bridge. Mary coming out and saying to the disciples who were there, and Peter just being really jealous. Like, it's this jealous, angry energy from him.
Yes.
And so you think about, the modern day church saying, oh, Peter is the rock that the church is founded on. And it's like, no.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. That makes so much sense.
The divine mother is the true rock. And
that has been taken out of the Bible. And I love in your book how he mentions that in a lot of your messages, the great mother. I think it went in, I know. Find that one. It's because you don't hear about that. All you hear from the Bible, and I'm just knocking the Bible only, but there's other teachings too, challenge, whatever, that it's, it's always my father. But we have, if we are a creation, wouldn't there be a father and a mother?
Exactly.
If we're created.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's splitting into the masculine and feminine.
Right.
You can't, the masculine cannot experience the masculine without the polarity of the feminine. Totally. And so to have, for Jesus just to teach, father,
it doesn't make any sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. In fact, his teachings, from what I feel and what I consciously am aware of and remember, were very mother centered, and you think too, because Jesus has introduced, and this is a whole nother podcast, but in introducing me to White Eagle, Jesus's teachings.
I love White Eagle. Same here.
I love White Eagle. Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. And those teachings of the mother, right? And I was thinking about this the other day with sitting in meditation with Jesus, and he said what came through. He's like, the MA, the Sanskrit chant, ma, is in mater, mater, matter. It's like in every word, mother is there, like that
Yeah.
MA root,
Mhm.
it's like in the French word for the sea, the sea as mother, Mother Mary, it's everywhere. um, you know, it's, and it wouldn't
That's
have made sense to have a complete, masculine centric, and it's not to bash the masculine or say, oh, it's not, it's all the mother. It's a balance of the two,
no,
and that,
I'm just bashing the
yeah,
the
oh, I know,
manipulators, the
right,
manipulators.
right, me too, because they were there and that's what happened. And circling back to, you know, um, having the divine feminine sort of hidden, for means for
Oh yeah.
patriarchal and power and control, because we've all had those lifetimes of
Hmm.
being tried and burnt as a witch,
Hmm.
um lifetimes I've had to heal of, being, called clinically insane,
Yeah.
of, all of these deep fears that we've had to clear from the feminine awareness for ourselves and for the collective, because, you know, the power of the feminine was such that it was so feared, right?
Oh, I know. I have very clear memory, which with Yeshua helped me clear of being a nun and
Yes.
having that psychic, whatever you want to call it, connection with him, with communication, clear communication with him, and being blah, blah, my beloved as my beloved.
Yes.
And I made the mistake of sharing it with a couple other nuns, and they told the priests, and boy, that didn't go well. That
Oh, I
didn't
know.
go well. Yeah,
I
not at
know.
all. It ended my life eventually.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's just another example of what
exactly.
the memories that we hold.
Exactly. And the pain and the fear around that, right? You know,
Right.
and I went through that too, for a good minute. I was like, I cannot tell anybody about this.
Yeah.
They're gonna like, and I had this feeling, I was like, and it had to have been from so many lifetimes still, seated in my unconscious, like they're gonna come after me, I'm gonna be murdered, I'm gonna be called crazy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Another one was, I'm never gonna, manifest a partner, a man's gonna call me crazy, and all these ridiculous thoughts that, are non-applicable to the time, but are very real because of what we've experienced in the past, and our journey as the feminine and incarnated now as the feminine, to transcend that, to speak about it now. It's still very raw and real. I still feel it. I still have to work through it. This morning I was meditating, I was sitting with Mary and Mother Mary, and the Marys as a whole always show up because I see them and feel them as a group of
Yeah.
women who just moved with Yeshua,
Hmm.
who were really his core. People are like, who are the Marys? I'm like, they're
Hmm.
all of us who moved with him, who learned from him, who helped him to actualize what he was teaching through the presence of our energy, because we were just as essential, right? And he knew that, and he spoke to that as well. And that's why people called him radical. It's why people, while he had people who understood, like us, he also had people who didn't, right?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
also,
Right.
and he
It,
reminds me of that too. He's like, that, I encountered the very same energy, but, don't be afraid, because I'm with you,
mhm.
and the eternal truth of that is really still what I have to sit with very presently before I share with anybody still, because, that those memories are still very present. They're still very
Mhm.
present.
Oh, I know. I also, well, what was I going to say? Do you, but going back to what you were talking about with resistance, with sharing it with others,
Yeah.
and it's, it's getting better, I believe,
Yeah.
especially in this community, in my community, that people that are watching that which isn't a huge community. All the thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are watching,
They're
I
coming.
haven't.
They're coming.
You know what I found out on another topic? We'll only stay there for a second. I found out that you can actually buy followers.
Crazy.
I'm like, well, no wonder. Well, that explains everything.
It does. It's so scary.
Yeah, you can buy like 100,000 followers or 15,000 followers for a certain amount of money, and I believe they're bots, but it shows that you have that many followers.
Wow,
Isn't that
makes
crazy?
so much sense to me too. That makes so much sense.
That's how people can have these 100,000 followers, and I'm like, geez, I guess everyone spends their time, doing this. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like,
isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
I promise I will not be buying any followers. Okay.
Me neither. No, I mean, that kind of feels like a table flipping moment, honestly.
Yeah. Yes. Which was one of the sexiest things I think I ever saw him do, now that I think about it. But
I know. Like, I just remember the awe, and it's like, that it's like not in my house, my father's house, my mother's house, and that just like, that moment. I mean, it's just like, it's like,
yes, whoo, man, yeah. It's like,
wow. I mean, he's everything.
He's everything.
Everything. And I remember that very distinctly too. And with a lot of people, touching on social media and touching on, the spiritual or community or whatever, there's so much of that happening where it's like, sometimes it's like, I feel that like energy welling up, and it's not coming from like I hold the truth and this is, everyone else is wrong. That's not the energy, but I can feel his energy in that moment now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that he's coming through a lot more in my sessions, and it's not necessarily with people who are Christian or anything like that, but just as brother, father, mentor, teacher, beloved, all of that. And so that's what I'm trying to get to earlier, when I keep interrupting myself, to how it can be difficult to explain to people or let people know this isn't a religious thing at all. And Christianity began after Yeshua was crucified. He has nothing to do, and he told me that from the very beginning. I did not start Christianity. And I mean, he there's good things about it, of course, brought his word and things like that, but he helped me understand. And as I was remembering things, there's things that have been so misconstrued, and there's a lot of times I'll be watching something or and someone will be quoting Jesus who's not in integrity, and he'll say, I didn't say that. I can hear him say, I didn't say that. But that's not what I meant, or that's not how I said it.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's not what I
said. Yes, they do. And there's so much of that happening. I just post this to my author page on Instagram. What comes from him will open your heart. It will. Oops. Did I lose you?
There you are.
What comes from him will open the heart, and you'll know it'll bring a peace. It'll bring joy, but it also brings, and I don't know how, it's like the presence and the fire of the Holy Spirit. It brings her righteousness, and that doesn't even feel like the right word, but it's like a direct, centered knowing, and there, people talk about, there's all this stuff, it's like people talk about, this group of people are going home and this group of people is going to ascend. And I'm like, Jesus never said that. That's not what Jesus meant. What is of Yeshua is we are all going home, and there's a lot of talk about like the 144,000, for example. But if you break down like what he showed me, 144 is 9, which is the number of man, which is all of us, which is we are all here to inherit what they say, the kingdom of God, which is,
Here.
heaven on earth, here
Yeah.
and now.
Here.
It's here,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that you have to do apart from actualize and realize that love, and Yeshua came. That's what he said. It's very simple. Love one another, forgive, find peace, and it is, there's so much out there that is people are saying is him, and I'm like, he didn't say that. He didn't say that,
No, he didn't say that. I know. And I think, go ahead.
Yeah.
It is. And I think one of the things that's misconstrued the most, and someone actually said this to me on a plane a long time ago when my dad was passing. I was when I lived in Texas, not driving, flying from Texas to Oregon to be with him because he was dying. And a gentleman next to me, he was a nice guy, older gentleman. I guess he'd be about my age now. But he was older than me. And we were chatting. I told him I was going home because my dad was dying, who was basically an atheist, agnostic at the least, but he was raised Catholic, and my grandmother was very, very, very strict Catholic. So he didn't believe in all of that. But he was a good man. He had a heart of gold, all of that. He just didn't believe that there was some God running, behind him saying, you're not supposed to do this and you're going to go to hell if you do that kind of thing. And that's what he told me. So anyway, so he asked me if the gentleman next to me said, has he brought Jesus Christ into his heart? And what I told him was he's a good man, and he would help give the shirt off his back to anyone.
Right.
I said, but he's not religious, and it's all about love. He's not really, he wasn't or isn't religious. And he said, well, you know what he said? Good doesn't get it. Yeah. He said, what he said was, Jesus says that I am the way. And it was that's what I'm trying to say is that is so misunderstood. And you said it earlier. I said, well, okay, whatever. But, and then I was reading a book, and out of the, I was looking forward, and out of the corner of my eye, and he'd show me these visions, which are so profound at the time, helping me. I saw this man just slowly start to disintegrate into a skeleton in my mind. Yeah. And what he told me was, that's the old way. That is not real. That's, it's built on not a very strong foundation. It's disintegrating.
Mm-mm. Yeah, exactly. It is. It exactly. And that's exactly what he's shown me. What's happening now is that those of us who are sort of going he showed me that it's happening like in waves on the planet, right? Like there's been waves before us, like we're a wave, and that there are waves that are going to come after us of people who remember that essential truth, that Christ within our own hearts, right? That the time of the guru is what he keeps telling me is ending. And so we make gurus out of our priests. We make gurus out of, old rituals, we make gurus and put these things and these people and these ways, before a direct relationship that we can have with, creator, source, divine, through the gateway of our own hearts,
Right.
We're remembering that. And so that point of Christed light that was seated within everything, within the entire cosmos, right? Like that, the halls of Amenti, like they call it, that he just sort of carved that pathway through it. It's like we're waking up and we're remembering that the truth is here, right? The truth isn't in religion, even though there's aspects of religion where if you dig deep enough, you can okay, like I can uncover these layers of this, and there's some truth that still remains right here.
Totally. Yeah.
But what's happening is we're waking up to that point of Christed light within. And that was his, it's like he always shows me, he's like, I'm not gonna come back, I'm not coming back on it like a cloud descending like with a thunderbolt. And
I always get this message. I always get this message
right?
when people say the second coming of Christ, and I always say, well, we are the second coming of Christ. But look what happened the first time. Why would I come back again and go just to go through that again, kind of thing? Because no, we are the second coming.
It's within us. Exactly.
Within us, yeah.
It's within us. It is us walking that way, walking that truth, walking that out. It's Mary Magdalene showing us through our eyes, showing us the potentiality, where we're going, where we're headed, what's waking up within us, right? And that, the essence of her relationship with Yeshua can be actualized within us and our relationship, our relationships. It's not something that exists outside of us. And that has been the biggest lie of the last 2,000 years, is that we have no power. We're born into these bodies, and these bodies have no meaning, and they're dirty and they're wrong. And, just by our human nature, we're sinners, this idea, and the idea of sin. I mean, that's a whole nother,
you know what I believe that is? It is definitely, but I thought maybe I can wrap it up just right here with the information I'm getting, and what I believe that is, I mean, that, religion twists things, fundamental religion twists things. I believe that when Catholics or any Christian belief system is that we're born in sin, I believe that it means we're bringing our traumas with us that we need to heal.
Oh,
that's what
wow, that, oh, yes, thank you for that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
that just sent chills up and down my whole
I know, I got them now
body.
too. Yeah,
that's like that is the truth that we come in with things to heal. That wow.
And the church has turned it around to meaning something bad, that it's something that we need to atone for, something like that. And atoning means healing, in my opinion, in my belief system. Yeah. And I also believe that purgatory is spirits that have died that are still stuck on the earth plane.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I had that exact feeling. Over last year over on Kauai, and I'm like, it's a state of not fully accepting that you can step in to the light, into the light, that you can, it's almost, it feels to me that idea is perpetuated purposefully to keep people stuck from the bliss of ascension. After
totally
death.
That they don't have any control over it, or any power over it, and we can't help them, because I do spirit rescues. I actually have a live one on Friday, but I do spirit rescues, and so this is part of my work here. And on the other side, I know I do it on the other side too. I've been there. But that makes total sense, that our power has been taken away from us. So, and that's part of the what we're going through. What you were talking about, reclaiming our power, empowerment, all that. And when we feel that love, and we understand, we remember that we are God expressing, just like Yeshua, when he walked the planet, he came here to teach us that with the things that I do, you can do, and more. It all makes, when we remember that, it all makes sense.
It all makes sense. And it's in keeping the divine feminine aspects out of that story has been a key component of keeping people from remembering that exact truth. From that exact truth. And that work that we're doing now to reclaim that is reclaiming our knowledge of our divinity.
Perfect. Yes.
And our sovereignty.
They can't stop us anymore. They cannot stop us anymore. They, meaning the ones we agreed to help us get back to our divinity. I read had a quote in my, I think it was in my newsletter. I put it in there. I just loved it from Rumi. He says, the reason I came here is to find my way back to my beloved. It was?
Yes, it gave me chills again. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that, we complicate it with so many other things, really. And it's just like, when you remember, and you have to, for me, I've spent probably the last 7 to 10 years getting down to that remembrance.
Yeah. It's interesting. You had a head injury. I did too. I had a head injury when I
oh, interesting.
When I found that again.
Yeah, there's
I
really
wonder what that is.
Like a crown opening, or awakening, or a pineal gland opening, or
2x4.
Yeah, exactly.
So my stepfather used to say, he say, if you don't listen to your guidance, your intuition, he wasn't spiritual or religious or anything. At least he didn't profess that to me at all. He said, if you don't listen to your gut instincts, he call it gut instincts, I believe, it'll keep, if you don't listen to them, then guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to get hit over the head with a 2x4.
And that's exactly it. That is exactly it. And that's almost exactly what happened to me. I got hit with a piece of medical device equipment that swung around, and essentially was like a big steel 2x4 and clocked me square in the temple.
Ooh, yeah, that's literal. Yikes.
Literal, and it was, looking back, I was being shown what you're doing as in what you're supposed to be doing, like, get out, do this, come back into your joy, free yourself from what you think you're supposed to be doing. I was working 60-hour work weeks in the pediatric OR as an RN, not happy. I was floating into labor and delivery. And so I was also seeing the ways in which the system was not caring for people, the ways in which the system was causing trauma. And I couldn't, I was just going to work and sort of keeping,
there you are.
Sorry, there you go.
That's all right.
The ways in which that I was just seeing this stuff and sort of allowing it, by participating in it. And,
right.
It's not to say that the whole system is evil and bad and to bash that either. But it wasn't the road I was supposed to be walking,
No, I get it. Yeah.
It's true.
Right.
There's good within that, just like there's good within, the religious system.
Oh yeah, totally. And there's tons of good people within the medical community. And we've been so programmed to believe that we have to have a paycheck in order to get through life. And the whole thing is just a big program. It's just we got to have a mortgage, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do the 9 to 5 thing and work ourselves to a bone and keep doing it over and over and over until we die. And then guess what? We come back and do it over and over.
Right. And so, and
which isn't good.
No, because that system, and I think this is what Yeshua was trying to communicate with me, years ago now. That system sort of keeps you in that circle. It allows you to stay sleeping. It allows you to stay forgetful,
Totally. It does.
It allows you to stay forgetful. And the abundance that's opened up in my life as a result of just really going out into nature, tuning into my heart and tuning into him and allowing that his energy to permeate my being. It's like financial abundance has come, a beautiful place to live, beautiful people. And it all sort of comes as a result of communing with him, and every time I sit down with him and meditate with him, right, I always sort of like take that Magdalene, that place, right? I can see like she shows me, through her eyes, their relationship and what she was teaching him and what he was teaching her, and how that reciprocal relationship, it's like just tuning into that and everything else comes, you know, everything else just comes. And it's like, whenever I get, you know, in my head about things, right? Whenever like the ego mind is like, you need to do this and you need to do that and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. It's like Joshua just kind of comes and he's like, follow me. We're going to go sit by the water. We're going to go sit by the river. You know, we're going to go sit under a tree. We're going to go sit in the grass. And we're just going to be with the mother. We're going to just be with the
Nice.
mother,
Yeah.
you know? And it was like, that's when he showed me, you know, it's like the divine mother, right? So you had like the big bang and the universe and everything is created. And then you had the divine masculine and feminine sort of become two separate aspects of supreme creator.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me that the divine mother, she took form, like she descended into matter. So M-A, that mother, into matter, and became our earth, our planet. And so, not being separate from the atoms that made the earth, you know, that created the
Mm-hmm.
water, that created the lands, you know, and this is all very much still very present in our indigenous cultures, in their teachings. So in being connected with that, it's like we remember that we're one with that. And so we remember that we're one with the divine mother. And then in
Right.
remembering that we're one with the divine mother, I'm one with the divine father and then the supreme creator. And so that's what he shows me every single time. And I'm like, oh, I was worried about, you know, finding this job or doing this. And it's just like, I'm
Yeah.
you know,
That
so
connection, when we're connected in that way, it opens up our channels and for flow.
yeah.
Definitely. It opens us up. And so that's really very interesting. I had a memory. It was during my out of body experience, and I'm not out of body experience, near death experience, which is kind of the same thing,
Oh,
where he
wow.
took
Yeah.
me to that planet, the water planet, and I felt my body as the planet. I was the planet.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it was there was so much love that was
Mhm.
in that I had for all of the beings on my body, the
Yeah.
planet.
Oh, I
It
just,
was I know it was just amazing, and I'm
yeah.
vibrating like crazy,
I
and
know, me too.
yeah, I was able to move my awareness from being the whole, like this body, same thing, like this body, and having that awareness of all the way down to, you know, the atmosphere. So much love for the atmosphere, so much love for the nature, for the water,
Yes.
the beings in the water, the everything, the minerals, the crystals, all the sentient, all sentient life, all of it, which is all sentient anyway, the
Oh,
air,
yeah.
all of it. It was just so much love and adoration for and with. And then I could move back up to the planet and back down to the tiniest particle.
Particle. Yes. Yes.
It's
It's
amazing. And that's what we forgot to have for our body, like you were talking about earlier. We've been
yes.
so disconnected from, you know, our true nature, but also our bodies is part of that. And how
Mhm.
loving our body and having that reverence for our body is,
Yes.
you know, in that space.
Yes.
How
Exactly.
can you get sick? You
Huh,
can't.
exactly. You can't. You can't. And how, you know, and it's like we have had it in, you know, our most recent history so backwards. It's
Hmm.
like, you know, you have a body because you are divine, right? Like,
Hmm.
because I am all, I have this body. And this body is a holy temple of all of that, that is, you
Hmm.
know? And that, I think, is probably the most profound thing that Joshua showed me. Like, look, you know, everyone just needs to remember that this is the truth of it, you know, like you're not a body with like this teeny tiny, like, oh, I was divine way over here and, you know, many moons ago, and the divine is something that's way up there. No, the body is the physicality of your divine essence, and
Right.
so it's like we've been so programmed to think, oh, the body is, wrong or dirty, or sexuality is wrong or dirty. I'm like, that's not what Jesus showed me.
No, it didn't show me that either. No.
No, ma'am. No, like this everything that is abundantly creative, and that our sexuality, right, our human sexuality is the most pure, divine, holy thing that we can experience in this body. And I joke with some of my my other good girlfriends who know Joshua in this way. I'm like, I joke, I'm like, did I just come here to experience juicy fruits and lovemaking? Because that's,
Why not?
because that's the beauty of being physically incarnated, and
Mhm.
that has been one of the biggest things also that Joshua has shown me, through the eyes of the Magdalene, you know,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I can remember, it's like, how else would he have been able to ascend into his light body, right? How would he have been able to ascend had he not been in holy physical communion with Mary? I mean, I
Mhm.
believe that they were married. I believe that they were,
Totally.
you
I
know,
believe they had children. I
I do
remember
too.
having children and
Right. I
adopting
do.
some children too.
Yeah. And that the children kind of came to us, too,
Mhm. Yeah.
from, everywhere. Children who
Every,
didn't have parents. And it was,
right.
I remember this big community around us, like the
Mhm.
Essenes. It's like we were traveling and children would come and they would join us, and they would
Right.
be, adopted by this woman and her husband, or they would be adopted by us, because everyone was sort of under the umbrella of the Christ Magdalene, of Jesus and Mary.
Yes.
It was all, we were all like this,
Wow.
there wasn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
There's a
yeah,
community. Definitely
yeah.
a community.
Mhm.
This is this is beautiful. It's funny that we were talking about just now. You were talking about sexuality and Yeshua,
Mhm.
and I remember a conversation. And it was not long after my near-death experience when I lived in Texas 20 years
Yeah.
ago or so. Um, but I didn't have that full memory of him of my near-death. I still
Mm,
don't have the full memory because things come uh, every once in a while, and I put things
right.
together with it.
Right.
But this coworker, she's Catholic and sweet, sweet, sweet person, and we were talking about Jesus a little bit,
Mhm.
and I told her, I said, well, he had sex, he was human, so he
Yeah,
had
it was
sex.
human.
He was, and
Absolutely.
she's like, no, 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 don't even say that kind of thing. It was, and, I said, well, of course he did. I mean, that's kind of
Of
a
course.
duh. And
I
I
mean,
just knew it. I knew it.
right.
I don't know where it came from. I just knew it. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
he was human. He came here to experience humanity and what it's like to
Absolutely.
be in the human body as well.
Well, and absolutely. And how, if, Mary, and they both knew, right? They both, like, I know, I feel that, Joshua traveled and he learned, from many, many, many ancient wisdom schools, and Mary
Hmm.
did as well, and they
Hmm.
both for lifetimes did that until they were both at a point where they could come together, and her energy was such that she could hold that energy and that vibration for him as he was ascending. And sexuality and sex and lovemaking and experiencing that energy through that physical union would have been a key component in
Definitely.
the seeding of that God force energy within his and her fields, because I remember very vividly at the foot of the cross, like having to put aside that humanness,
Hmm.
hold that vibration, and there, that aspect of
Right.
their relationship would have been a very key component that would have
Hmm.
been a key essence in allowing them to do that. And so
Oh,
it's,
totally.
you know,
Well, our
yeah,
sexuality is a very powerful
oh,
energy. and it's being twisted. It's been twisted. It's being
Yes.
twisted now.
Yes.
It's just a
Yes.
sacred, it's probably the most sacred thing that we have
Yes.
between the masculine and the feminine, is our,
Yes.
of course. And so,
Yes, absolutely. You know, and
yeah,
now
and to
it's
take
like,
that away from him,
yeah,
that
I
doesn't
don't
make any
understand it
sense. It doesn't make any
either.
sense.
It makes no logical sense.
Yeah,
It disempowers the masculine and it disempowers the feminine as holy aspects of the divine,
right.
you know,
Because
and
that's part of it.
it's part of it. And we're, you know, we're seeing that now, where if we can take that away from the feminine, if we can take that away from the masculine, then, you know, we can still have power over, and people are still forgetting their sovereignty. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is, you know, it's very much out there and happening now, you
Yeah,
know.
it is. And that's
Yes.
one thing that he taught, or he helped me with in the very beginning, was helping to heal the divine feminine within me because of my
Yes.
history, and having that healthy relationship with my sexuality,
Yes.
because that's so
Thank-
important, because the divine feminine has been so wounded, and the divine masculine as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you know, so it's a big job. So
It is.
thank you, Yeshua. Thank you for sticking around. And
Oh,
Mary, all
I
the Marys,
know.
Mary
It's just like
Magdalene.
I love them so much.
Me too.
It's just like I love and I love him so much. He just is everything, you know, and it really is, you know, and to get people back to that point of love for him within their own heart space, you know,
Mhm.
is what I think what we're all experiencing now, you know, and it's so amazing to have found people like you know, and Michelle too. You know, I was watching your video with you guys the other day and thinking, yes, we're finding each other. It feels so good, you know, we're coming back. And he said, and was said to me, he goes, what's gonna happen is that when you accept my light and you accept me and my presence in your life, everything is going to kind of fade out and fade away that you've known, and it's going to be scary, and you're going to be scared. Like it's that's just normal and natural when you experience such a flush of
Mhm.
divine energy and divine presence in your life. Most of what you've known is going to fade away. He goes, but know that the more of this light that you hold, the more that others who are waking up and also holding it are going to find you, and they're going to recognize you. And it's just going to be like, oh, hey, like, you know, I remember you and I remember this.
Mhm.
And, you know, no, you know, we're going to be the medicine for each other first. And
Mhm.
then as we become the medicine for each other, we then become the medicine for the world.
Right. Yeah. There's interesting. You mentioned we're going to recognize each other. I've come in contact with quite a few people lately who
Yeah, me
were,
too.
who did walk with him
Mm,
in those days, you
yeah.
know, back in the day. Quite a few that were, yeah, lots of different relationships and different people that were there, that were in his community, in that community, not just
Oh,
his, that community that they held there, um,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I
wanting to
mean,
be with him. Yeah.
and it's even like in, you know, in subtle ways too, you know, because remembering like how because I was always very, very close, and this is Mary showing up again too, you know, through things through her eyes,
Hmm.
very close with Joseph of Arimathea, so his uncle. I mean, just always loved
Did you
him.
see what I shared on, what Michelle and I shared on her channel? I mean,
No.
our channel. I'm going to put
Oh,
it up on my channel. A photo of Yeshua and Joseph
oh,
of Arimathea and his younger brother James
yeah.
behind
Oh,
him.
yeah.
It's supposed to
Dang.
be a time travel photo. So yeah,
Oh, well, I can't wait
I'll
to
bring
check
it.
that out.
Yeah, I'll bring it up here. if I can, but go ahead, keep talking about Joseph.
Yeah, so I remember, after he was the one that after the crucifixion that, I can remember through the eyes of the Magdalene traveling with him, and seeding and starting the first churches, and so it's interesting because as I'm traveling, right, in these last a couple of years, I'm thinking and remembering, the climate after the crucifixion was very volatile, even, amongst like Peter, for example, and Paul, amongst the people who knew Jeshua. And so travel was very dangerous and very treacherous. And it's like I'm even getting like these deja vus, like as, and today it's not, dangerous or whatever to travel, but I'm just getting these deja vus of and synchronicities, when I came here from Ohio, for example, I was in Atlanta and I was almost going to miss my flight, and people let me cut in line, and then a man grabbed my bags and a lady put my laptop back in my bag for me, and it was just like I was very aware of this community around me, like as I was going, and I thought to myself, I go, this is how we were, like this is how
Mhm.
the outer community, I call them the Essenes, then
Mhm.
it was branching further out of the Essene community. I'm like, this is how, this is what Yeshua was talking about. It's like these people that are just showing up,
Right.
it's like that, a flashback to, traveling with Joseph of Arimathea after the crucifixion, how, remembering that we were stuck. I just remember being stuck in a big body of water with a boat with no sail. And how are we going to get, and collectively the power of our prayer moved us to shore, and how people received us, took us in, gave us food, and how
Right.
we were sort of spread out,
Mhm.
as like these little points of light all over the planet. And now it's like what he told me last year. I'm becoming kind of aware, and in kind of a roundabout way of saying it, becoming aware of all of us kind of everywhere,
The same community. Let me
Yeah.
show you this and let me
Yeah.
know what you think. So this is, I guess it's looking glass technology, but it's not called that. The Vatican had hidden, and a priest uh, talked about using time travel.
Mhm.
Do you see that?
It's coming. Oh, no.
Okay, so let me. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow.
this is supposedly this priest said that he took some photos because as they looked at time, they were able to move back and forward in time, and it was like a TV screen. He said I have to pull up the website on it, but we talk about it on New Earth Rising channel. Michelle and I, how these scientists invented with him, and so he was able to look at events in time, and one of them was the crucifixion. And this is the photo. I just came across it about a week or so ago. Chronographer, I think chronovision is what they call it. And he took this photo of what it looks like. Joseph of Arimathea right here,
Mm,
according to him. Does he look familiar?
I can't quite make out but his essence feels
Okay.
familiar. The
And,
essence is right. I
yeah.
can't quite make out. I never could quite make out a face when I saw him. It was like a feeling, and that it's almost like a Merlin-y feeling, almost sort
Yes.
of. But
Yes.
yes,
He looks like Merlin. He's got the big
yes,
beard and everything.
yes, that feeling feels right. And I don't know if there was, I always felt a merging between Joseph of Arimathea and Merlin, who people call, who we know as Merlin. And was
Right.
there some
Right.
soul merging? Was there a sharing of a soul stream? But um I always had this, and this is probably like a side conversation too, but I always had this knowing, like a love of the Druids, because,
Mhm.
Mary, when after the crucifixion, we landed in France, but we made our way up into, now what we know as the UK. And so, I think what feels right to me is that, Mary and Sarah and possibly, more of us were sort of absorbed and cared for by those, the wisdom people or the indigenous people like the druids of
Right.
those areas. So that his
That makes
essence
sense.
really, really feels right. Yeah. Wow.
So
Wow.
this
Wow.
is purported to be Yeshua in the middle here, and then his
Mm.
younger brother James behind
James,
him.
yes, I love James. Yeah, always did. And it was funny that you bring him up too because I always felt him, and I'm like, who is this? Who is this? Like,
Mhm.
but now, yeah, little brother, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's an amazing photo, I believe. It's whoops.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
okay. You want to bring it back up?
Oh no, that's fine.
Okay,
That's
so
fine. Yeah, no,
but you're
that was
looking on your
wow.
phone, so it might not be able to see it very well. But I do have a
Yeah.
video where we talk more about it. I'll put it on this channel.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that.
so it's interesting you brought up Joseph of Arimathea because there's that photo, and we did a group I'm with. We did remote viewing on it last night,
Wow.
and it mostly came up with the time travel device is what kept coming up during the remote viewing, and it was a blind remote viewing, but it was pretty interesting. Yeah,
That's so it felt so good. Like I could just
mhm,
look at it and absorb the energy from that.
mhm.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
incredible. That is really incredible. 'Cause I've always loved him too. I don't know why. I'm just like, Joseph of Arimathea. Like his name has just always been with me, you know?
Yeah, same here. So
Wow.
we are about out of time. We're gonna have to do this again, and
Yes.
I want you
Yes.
and I and Michelle to talk too. So on New
Oh,
Earth
I would
Rising,
love
how's
that.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to
That
read
would be
the what you wrote on the back of your book, if you're okay with that.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, or if you have it memorized, maybe you can read it coming from
No,
you.
go
Since
ahead. I'm in the zone.
okay, all right. So this is really beautiful. I love you more than every song that has ever been sung, more than every word on every page, more than every star that hangs in the sky, more than all the time which has ever passed. Whew, you were known and loved before you were ever born. Jesus. I know. I just want
I
to let that
know.
sink in too. Yeah.
And it's, and because of the way that they came to me too, I'll just say this for people, the way that, I open up that book and I read them and I'm overcome and I cry, because,
It's because it's directly to you
mhm,
and you feel that again. But
yeah.
just for people that are watching, for all you beautiful people that are here watching this, Rachel, I'm sure you would say this, that you can still feel that energy from his messages,
Oh,
correct?
oh yeah. Every,
Yeah.
every day, for a long time, I was sleeping with the book under my pillow, because I think it does, like, it radiates his energy, it was just a very beautiful, profound experience that opened up a relationship now that has profoundly changed my life. And so to bring that energy to people through the book, it's just such a gift for me. Like I feel so humbled and so grateful that I could be the vessel for that for people because, that's all I tell people. That's all I am. I'm just allowed myself to be a clear vessel, and it's something that each and every one of us can do too.
Nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling Rachel as I was reading it earlier, I was marking off pages. Oh, I want to talk about this page. Oh, I want to talk about this page. And it ended up being every page.
I know, really, they're all a TED Talk, really, every single one of those messages. And, I read it and, each one of them, there's so many layers to each
Yes.
one. You can read the same message one day and then come back to it months later, I feel, and you see it in a totally different light and you're like, this is what it's saying also, so it's like a what did they who was that, was it the Buddha that, or Kuan Yin with the thousand flowered continually blooming
Mm-hmm.
lotus? it's how they feel, they continually
Yeah.
just kind of open up and reveal more layers. So
Oh, beautiful. And you
yeah,
can use it as an oracle. I mean, just
you really can.
open it up and say, oh, this is perfect for me today.
Yep.
This is perfect. This is
Love
perfect
that.
for me today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that,
Yeah.
of course, will happen.
Yeah. Thank you so much for recognizing
Oh,
that too. So to have
yeah.
someone, recognize that and sort of reflect that back to me, it's so beautiful. So thank you so much for, bringing attention to how it resonated for you, because that for me is just, it makes all of the nights crying and sweating, getting over the fear, makes it all worth it. So thank
Oh,
you for
well,
seeing that
good.
too. Yeah.
Well, well, thank you. I love that you did bring it to us. So love notes from Jesus. Yeah. I mean, what could be better than that?
I know.
This one little book, one little book that will change your life. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Thank
completely.
you. So we
Thank
will
you.
talk again. Thank you for being here, Rachel.
Yes,
And
thank you so
yes, can't wait to talk again if
Yeah.
you're up for it.
Oh, absolutely. I
Okay.
can't wait.
All right. And can't wait for your
Absolutely.
second part 2 as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
So,
everyone. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
yeah, thank you guys so much. And again, you can get it. Sharon, you'll put the link in
I
the
will.
description, and people, you can just look it up on Amazon under Rachael Lahela Marie. For some reason, it comes up easier under my full name than it does if you type in Love Notes from Jesus, because I think it's still sort of finding its way up out of the Amazon algorithms.
I found
So,
it pretty quickly, pretty easy.
good.
So,
Good.
yeah. And your website, you have a website too?
Yeah, so my
Okay.
website is just RachelLahelaMarie.com. So
Okay.
super easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Super
All
easy.
right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest. Or it's a little bit later over there. Enjoy the rest of your evening
Yeah. You too.
on the Big Island. So,
Yes.
I know, right? All right.
Good.
All right, darling. Have a good
All
one.
right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye, everybody. Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Okay.
Bye.